Hello, my name is David. This is my submission for my science experiment for my History 3900 class. I'm currently in the Denver airport right now in my departure flight. Just 3 days ago, I carried out my experiment on my arrival. It's kind of suiting to where I'm filming this right now. The experiment is called Backpack versus Rollers, the airport speed race. So hopefully today I can get through my question, the hypothesis, what I'm trying to discover here, research involved in that, the experiment itself and its parameters, the conclusion I've come to, and some limitations I faced and how it could be improved on in the future if this experiment was to be repeated. And finally, how it relates to the class. The question I want to answer is, does the type of luggage, whether it be suitcase or backpack, have an effect on a traveler's walking speed in an airport hallway? My hypothesis is if a traveler is pulling a rolling suitcase, then they will walk slower. That's because of the maneuvering it requires, and it creates an additional resilience. And then the null hypothesis will be that there is no correlation between luggage type and airport travel speed. You can see people walking back and forth behind me right now. You may have seen airlines in the headlines very recently. That's honestly why I wanted to get into this. This first source from AP News: flight disruptions continue as air traffic controllers brace for their first full missing paychecks. So with the government shutdown, you're seeing a lot more traffic in the in airports. So I think this is timely and honestly pretty relevant to some of the delays we're facing. I'm was facing some delays there and seeing it firsthand. This second one from Science Direct: effects of modern military backpack loads on walking speeds, I found really interesting. Big takeaway, no matter how optimized they made these backpacks, they were still hindered by the load in their walking speeds. These top two influence of backpack carriage and walking speed on motor synergies in children, and the other one by National Library of Medicine. Those are both more medical. And then the final one I liked the most talked about the physical space that luggage carriers take up and how in a controlled environment how that does slow them down. The airport speed race, this was my experiment. I tracked in an hour 61 people, data points. I timed them as they crossed 2 points, so I'm highlighting them right here. Starting, ending at those two, I would time them and then divide by the distance to find their average speed in meters per second. So this woman in the pink, she can be our example. I would time her and boom, I'd stop her right there. So I did that 60 times, and this one took about 11 seconds. So I would record their time, whether they were alone or accompanied, and finally, of course, whether they had a backpack or a suitcase. So here is my findings. The average backpack speed was 10.64 seconds, which averaged to 1.74 seconds over the 18.5 meters that they walked. 13.32 seconds, average of 1.39, so much slower for suitcase carriers. This does show a significant difference, which is honestly, for me, it was unexpected. Here's the data on the leftmost column. You can see the timestamps I kind of took sporadically, followed by the primary key, B for backpack, S for suitcase, if they're in a group or not, and then their time. I averaged the backpack walkers and the suitcase. I've gone over those. this standard deviation actually shows that there, and it makes sense that I was observing it myself, that there were lots of outliers. So big variance, that had to do with whether there was congestion or some big outliers that probably skewed the data would be, there were some in wheelchairs, there were, on the other end of the spectrum, there was some single guys that were really quick about getting to their destination. Conclusion, there's a correlation between travel speed and luggage type, which I thought was very interesting. That can be brought up to a bunch of different factors, which I want to go over here in limitations. Sample size being 61, that's pretty fair, but of course with more areas, more airports, it could be taking more. Location, I was in entering the airport zone, so there were many people really rushing to get to their flights, but it could be whole different story on another side of the airport where people are more relaxed. Gender could be one. Group size, anything over 3, they were much slower. So there's lots of outliers. I'd like to conclude by relating this back to a few points in our class. One being about the evolution of technology. Luggage with wheels on the bottom is a newer standard, 1970s when they had it. Here I'm giving credit for the template I used, but let me see. I also found myself feeling like a little bit of a scientist myself, using the scientific method as we've seen in past generations and talked about in class. Finally, I see how integrated science and technology really is into our everyday life, in places as simple as an airport. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate that, and I hope I get a good grade. Thank you. Have a great week.